There is something that all cultures of the world share, something that needs no translation or explanation. A fear as ancient as the first human who gazed at the horizon and saw endless water. For thousands of years, we gave that fear a face. We gave it names, we invented forms for it. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Not everything we call a monster was invented. Some existed, others may still exist. And the worst part is that the more we explore the ocean, the more we realize we aren't discovering answers. We're discovering ever darker questions. Part 1. Monsters born from the sea. Imagine you're a Nordic sailor in the year 900. There's no GPS, no radio, just a sail, a piece of driftwood, and the ocean stretching out in every direction like a gaping maw. Suddenly, the water begins to boil, not from heat, but from movement. And something enormous is stirring beneath you, and then you see it. Tentacles as thick as an ancient tree slowly emerging, wrapping the boat like a toy. Your shipmates scream, but their voices are drowned out by the cracking of the splitting wood. That's the Kraken, not a legend sailors told to frighten children. It was the monster-grown sailors prayed they'd never encounter. The Norse didn't describe it as an animal. They described it as an island that decided to move. They said that if you saw foam on the water where there shouldn't be any, you were already dead, because the Kraken didn't attack suddenly. First it played with you. First it let you sense that something was wrong, and when it finally appeared, it was too late to pray, to row, to do anything except accept that the ocean had decided to collect its due. They marked it on maps with a simple but devastating warning. Monsters befall here. But here's the twist. Giant squid do exist. They weren't filmed until the early 2000s. Before that, we only had scars on whales, bits of tentacles washed up on beaches, and the terrified testimony of fishermen who swore they'd seen something impossible. Today we know they can grow to over 12 meters long. They have eyes the size of dinner plates, and they live in areas of the ocean so deep that the pressure would crush a submarine like a soda can. The real question isn't whether the Kraken existed, it's whether something even bigger is still waiting down below. And if the Kraken was the sailor's terror, Jörmungandr was the terror of the entire world. The serpent that bites its own tail, the son of Loki, the brother of the wolf Fenrir and of Hel, the goddess of the dead. According to Norse mythology, Jörmungandr didn't just live in the ocean. He encircled the entire planet, hidden beneath the waves, waiting for the day he would break free and the end of everything would begin. Ragnarok, the Norse apocalypse. And that day would come when the serpent stopped biting its tail and rose up. The Vikings believed that Jörmungandr and Thor were destined to kill each other. Thor would strike the serpent with his hammer, Mjolnir, and kill it, but he would only walk 9 steps before collapsing, poisoned by its breath. 9 steps. That's the distance between killing the monster and becoming its ultimate victim. But here's the unsettling part. This story didn't come out of nowhere. Norwegians and Icelanders had been reporting sightings of sea serpents for centuries. Even in the 1800s, fishermen swore they'd seen creatures as long as entire villages slithering beneath the surface. Today, Jörmungandr appears in God of War, Assassin's Creed, tattoos, and metal album covers. But it's not just a large snake. It's a living metaphor for something far more terrifying. The idea that something is slowly coiling around us, creeping closer, and we're too busy to notice, until one day it tightens its grip and we can no longer breathe. But if there is one being who embodies silence as a weapon, it is Umebozu. Japanese fishermen knew him well. Too well. They said that after a terrible storm, when the wind died down and the sea became as flat as a mirror, there he was. An enormous shadow emerging from the water, faceless, eyeless, sometimes with arms, sometimes just a gigantic head floating in the mist. Umebozu, the sea monk. And his silence was more terrifying than any roar. Legend has it that if a sailor spoke to him, Umebozu would ask for a bucket. If you gave him a regular bucket, he would use it to fill your ship with water until it sank. The only way to survive was to give him a bottomless bucket, confusing him long enough to escape. But the truth is, few escaped, because Umebozu didn't arrive in fury. He arrived calmly, with certainty, as if he already knew your ship belonged to him. Today he appears in manga, anime, and horror video games. He always represents the same thing, the silence that speaks volumes, the kind of silence that means something has decided not to let you go. And then there are the mermaids, not the Disney ones, the real ones, the ones Celtic and Norse sailors saw on the rocks. The ones who sang so beautifully that men would steer their ships straight toward the cliffs just to hear one more note. Ancient legends didn't describe them as beautiful maidens with shimmering tails. They described them with sharp teeth, pale skin, long claws, and eyes that glowed in the dark. They weren't romantic, they were hunters. In fact, in the original folklore, mermaids didn't even have tails. They were half woman, half bird, winged creatures that perched on rocks and waited. Over time, this image merged with sea maidens, creating the hybrid we know today. But the essence remains the same, a beautiful being that uses its beauty to destroy you. There's something profoundly human in that fear. The fear that the most beautiful thing you've ever seen will also be the last. Yes, if all of this seemed like just myth and exaggeration to you, like this post now. Because from here on out, what follows is no longer born from legends. It was born from reality. Part 2. When myth collided with science. Now, imagine this. You're scuba diving in tropical waters. The sun streams across the surface, creating rays of blue light. All is peaceful until a shadow passes over you. A shadow so large it blocks the sun completely. You look up and see a mouth the size of a car, full of teeth like butcher knives. And then you understand something terrible. You're not a diver, you're food. That's the Megalodon. And it's not a myth, it existed. This prehistoric shark could grow up to 18 meters long. Its jaws could crush a car. A single tooth measured almost 20 centimeters. Fossilized teeth have been found on every continent: Europe, Australia, America, Asia. It hunted whales like we hunt fish. It was the ultimate predator of the ocean. And then, it disappeared. 2.5 million years ago, the Megalodon went extinct. At least, that's what mainstream science says. But here's the inconvenient detail. Some of those teeth look too recent. Some are so well preserved they appear to be hundreds of years old, not millions. There are blurry videos of gigantic sharks in the deep sea. There are testimonies from fishermen who swear they've seen something impossible. And then there's the simplest argument of all. We've only explored 5% of the ocean. 5%. That means 95% remains a complete mystery. A dark, cold, pressurized mystery, and potentially teeming with things we thought were extinct. If the Megalodon scared you in the water, wait until you meet Titanoboa, a snake the length of 2 buses, 50 feet of pure muscle, weighing over a ton. It lived 60 million years ago in the tropical swamps of what is now Colombia. And in those swamps, Titanoboa wasn't just a predator. It was the undisputed king. It hunted giant fish, turtles the size of tables, and probably young crocodiles. It didn't bite. It crushed, with enough force to snap a spine like a dry twig. The craziest thing is that Titanoboa was only discovered in 2009. A group of paleontologists was working in a coal mine in Colombia when they found fossilized vertebrae. Some were as big as a human head. Today you can see its reconstructed skeleton at the Smithsonian Museum in Washington. And when you see it in person, you don't think of snakes. You think of dragons, of things that shouldn't exist, but did. And then comes the inevitable question. If it survived 60 million years in prehistoric swamps, what makes us think it couldn't still be alive in some forgotten corner of the Amazon? And then there are the creatures that live on the blurred border between science and legend. Ogopogo, the monster of Okanagan Lake in Canada. The Syilx indigenous people knew it as Naitaka, a spirit that demanded offerings to allow safe passage across the lake. Over time, it became the legend of a water serpent up to 15 meters long, dark skin, small head like a horse's, undulating body. The first official sighting was in 1926. Since then, dozens of people have reported seeing it. Blurry photos, shaky videos, confusing stories. Ogopogo's most famous cousin is, of course, Nessie, the Loch Ness Monster in Scotland. The first official mention dates back to 565, when St. Columba supposedly encountered a giant creature. In 1933, a photograph known as the surgeon's photograph became world famous. It was later proven to be a hoax, but the damage was already done. Nessie became an icon, a tourist attraction, a collective obsession. Do they really exist? Probably not. Most sightings can be explained as floating logs, waves, or distortions of light. But here's the catch. Some lakes are so deep and so dark that we've never fully explored them. And as long as that's true, there will always be room for doubt. There will always be a corner in our minds that whispers, what if? Oh, and if this part has made you doubt, if for a second you've thought that maybe we don't know everything, subscribe. Because what comes next isn't mythology. It's based on records. And it's much more unsettling. Part 3. Modern Horrors of the Abyss. Now we come to the most unsettling part. Because modern monsters aren't born from ancient legends. They're born from data, from sounds, from things our instruments detect but can't explain. In 1997, underwater sensors picked something up, a sound so powerful it was detected over 5,000 kilometers away. It didn't resemble any known animal. It didn't resemble anything made by humans. They gave it a simple name, the bloop. The bloop's coordinates are eerily close to a fictional location. The coordinates where, according to Lovecraft's writings, lies Urlia, the underwater city where Cthulhu slumbers. This sparked theories. Could it be the cry of something ancient awakening? something so vast that our minds can't even comprehend it. Mainstream science says it was the sound of a glacier breaking underwater. But cryptozoologists aren't convinced, because the bloop didn't sound like ice. It sounded organic. It sounded alive. And then there's the ningen, a creature so strange it seems designed specifically to be unbelievable. Massive white body, humanoid shape, no face, no mouth, no eyes. Just a pale silhouette gliding beneath the Antarctic ice. The first reports came from Japanese fishermen in the early 2000s. They claimed to have seen giant beings, up to 30 meters long, swimming in the coldest waters on the planet. Then they appeared in paranormal magazines, on internet forums, in fake videos and low-quality documentaries. The fascinating thing about ningen isn't whether it exists or not. It's that there's no proof. Zero bodies, zero DNA, zero clear photographs, only shadows, only testimonies, only that persistent feeling that something completely alien might be moving in parts of the planet we haven't yet explored. And that uncertainty is, in many ways, more terrifying than any confirmation. But if there's one creature that embodies the silent horror of the deep ocean, it's the sea eater. It has no eyes, just a mouth that takes up half its head. Smooth skin, like a seal's, indeterminate size, though some witnesses say it's as big as a bus, or bigger. The first mentions come from coastal legends in Scandinavia and northern Canada. Fishermen who spoke of ships disappearing in calm waters. No waves, no splashing, just silence. And then nothing. As if the ocean had decided not to return the ship. The sea eater doesn't attack in a rage. There's no fight. It simply appears beneath the boat, and the boat ceases to exist. It's the kind of monster that doesn't need to be aggressive because it has already won, because it understands something we don't, that the ocean isn't our territory. It never was. And when we decide to enter it, we're tacitly accepting that we might not return. And finally, the great maha, a creature so recent it only exists online. But that doesn't make it any less terrifying. According to online descriptions, it measures over 600 meters long. It has 6 small white eyes arranged on the sides of a massive head, and a mouth full of teeth the size of a grown man's. It supposedly lives deep in the Arctic, hidden in areas where even light cannot reach. The legend began when strange sounds were recorded in the Arctic. Some said it was ice cracking, others insisted it was something alive. Then an underwater expedition supposedly captured the shadow of something enormous moving in front of the camera. The video went viral, it was debunked, but the damage was already done. Because the Great Maha represents something fundamental. Our fear doesn't come from the monster itself. It comes from incomplete data, from cut-off recordings, from the fact that in the 21st century with all our technology, there are still places where we don't know what's going on. So, here we are, at the end of the journey. And the truth is darker than you expected, isn't it? Because these monsters aren't just stories, they're mirrors. They reflect our most primal fear, that there are things bigger than us, and older than us, and that they don't care about us at all. The Norse had the Kraken, the Japanese had the umebozu. We have the bloop, the ningen, the great maha. The names change, the technology changes, but the fear remains the same. The ocean covers 70% of the planet. We only know 5%. That means everything I've just told you could be only the beginning. If this video made you feel something, if it made you look at the ocean differently, give it a like and subscribe, because this is just the tip of the iceberg. And believe me, what lies beneath is much worse.